Hello and welcome to the Sci-Fi Christian. I am Ben DeBono here with installment number 3 out of 5 in my Watching Hamlet series, in which I'm watching 5 different adaptations of Hamlet. So first off, we had Laurence Olivier's Hamlet. Last time we had the Mel Gibson, he didn't direct it, but he starred as the Danish prince in the 1990 version. And today we are taking a look at the big one, Kenneth Branagh's 1996 4-hour, every single word from the play adaptation. Now, just to reiterate what I've said on other videos, I have not seen any of these before, so this was my first time watching any of these, and out of all of them, I was probably most excited for this one. And I gotta say, completely lived up. No, that's not true. Completely surpassed my expectations. This is not only a great adaptation of Hamlet, this is just a great movie, period. In fact, I could see this not only becoming my favorite adaptation of the play, but one of my favorite movies of all time. It's just that good. Everything in it works perfectly. It almost feels unfair that I have 2 more movies to watch after this, because it's going to be tough to give them a fair shake after watching what Kenneth Branagh pulls off here. If you watch the last video, I had a lot of issues with the Mel Gibson version. I felt like it did some things right. It had a couple good moments, but a lot of problems with it throughout. And one of the big problems that I had with that version was the way that it kind of chops up Shakespeare and, moves scenes around and cuts a lot of stuff out and everything. And messes with the structure of the play a little bit. I mean, not too much, but enough where it causes some issue and makes the movie a little hard to follow. And Branagh doesn't do any of that. He just lets Shakespeare go. In fact, I about halfway through the movie, I opened up my iPad and brought up the text of the play on the screen, and outside of an occasional thing where he'll move a paragraph of text around a little bit, you can just pretty much follow the play all the word for word all the way through. And it's a real testament not only to Branagh's skills as a filmmaker, but also the fact that Shakespeare knows what he's doing, that it works that well, whereas the Mel Gibson version kind of feels like it's trying to fix Shakespeare. It's trying to, we're going to move this around, we're going to compensate for that, and and Branagh just lets Shakespeare talk, and it's what needs to happen, and it works so perfectly. This is a fantastic film. One of the things Branagh does really well is that throughout the movie he has flashbacks to what things you've seen before. Now, I kind of heard that he did this going in, and I was a little curious how that was going to work, because, what, is he going to write additional material? No, he doesn't do that at all. It's just lines from the play are being spoken. You'll see a flashback or something to like Claudius poisoning King Hamlet or something like that. Or we see flashes of Fortinbras, who, he doesn't have a line in the play until, I think, Act 4, but we see moments of him, like when they're talking about him meeting with Old Norway and everything. And so Rufus Sewell, who plays Fortinbras, just gives a phenomenal performance where he doesn't have more than a few lines in the play, but he does a great bit of silent and physical acting in those kind of pseudo-flashback moments Branagh puts in there, so that by the time Fortinbras actually shows up on screen, we feel like we know that character. We feel invested in him. We feel like he's an integral part of what is going on. And I gotta say that Fortinbras actually is probably the character who benefits most from Branagh's approach to this play, both because of what I mentioned before, but also because Branagh uses Fortinbras as kind of this apocalyptic doomsday clock throughout the story. And that's certainly a part of the play, but I guess it never clicked for me in the same way that that it did until I was watching this. Just how apocalyptic the Fortinbras character is, and like during the final scenes and everything, where Laertes and Hamlet are dueling, and we see Fortinbras's army closing in on Elsinore, and which isn't in the play, but it's again kind of handled like those flashback scenes, so that wouldn't, of course, be a flashback since it's happening at the same time. And so there's this sense of a collapsing world going on here. There's a sense of apocalyptic resolution. There's the sense of doomsday, judgment day coming. And it works so well. Oh my gosh, it just works so well with the material. Um, Kenneth Branagh also plays Hamlet. Lights out, phenomenal. Derek Jacobi is great as Claudius. Kate Winslet knocks it out of the park as Ophelia. Everybody right down the cast list. And there's some great surprise casting in here that I think probably even if you've seen it, you might not remember. Judi Dench shows up in when the player king is reciting the poem about Priam and Hecuba. She shows up in a silent role playing Hecuba. It's a great little moment there. Charlton Heston plays the player king and is really, really, really good. Just again knocks it out of the park. It's I'm sure you can nitpick things in this play, or in this adaptation, but I honestly can't think of many. It's just everything works that perfectly. I got to talk about the cinematography too, because it reminded me of Kubrick with a lot of single perspective shots or 1 point perspective shots. It almost reminded me a little bit, and this is probably the 19th century setting that Branagh puts the play in, which we'll talk about in a second. It reminded me a little bit of Barry Lyndon that way, not in the same way because Branagh is using a lot of artificial lighting and everything in the scenes, which works really well. But I kept kind of thinking because it has a little bit of the Barry Lyndon feel there with the combination of a period setting and the 1 point perspective. And I was like, oh man, this would have been really interesting if Branagh had just gone all the way and did kind of the natural candlelit stuff that Stanley Kubrick did in that movie, which is, if you haven't seen Barry Lyndon, it's worth watching, if for nothing else than the cinematography. People rag on it for being a boring movie. It's not, but even if you wind up thinking it's a boring movie, it's so gorgeous to look at. It's worth your time, completely regardless of how you feel about the story. Anyway, not talking about Stanley Kubrick right now. Yes, the cinematography is absolutely gorgeous in here, in terms of how Elsinore is shot, in terms of the throne room scenes. The throne room is just this gorgeous set with black and white tiles and mirrors all over the place, and it's where Hamlet has his to be or not to be soliloquy, and it just knocks it out of the park. I mentioned in the Mel Gibson version how out of place that kind of feels, like where we're trying to get this action movie aesthetic going, and then we're going to pause for soliloquy. Not here at all. It flows perfectly through the material. So I love pretty much everything in this. Now, at the end of the last video, when I was previewing this adaptation, I said the one thing I was unsure about was putting Hamlet in the 19th century as opposed to its original setting. And I'm really of two minds on this. I can't complain about the 19th century setting because it works so perfectly. It really does work perfectly, and that issue was on my mind during the first few minutes of the movie, and then I just forgot about it, and just you get caught up in the story and in the acting and in the cinematography, and it's almost impossible to tear your eyes off the screen because everything just looks so beautiful. And I can't imagine this movie not having that setting. It just works so well. The only thing I think you can say, the other side of that though, is that it is the one thing that stops this from feeling like the definitive mic drop, no one ever needs to do it again Hamlet adaptation. Right? It's And it's tough to say that that's a complaint. It's just when the fact that Branagh goes out of his way to, include every word and has the play flow so well, and then he changes that detail. It's the one charge I think you could bring against this and say, well, that wasn't quite Hamlet. It's Hamlet in the 19th century, and that's not Hamlet. I don't think I would say that, but I could understand that charge being leveled against this adaptation. It's really about the only major complaint you can make, and even that's a pretty poor complaint given how perfectly the 19th century setting works. So I can't imagine holding it against it. For me, I just love this movie. It was absolutely phenomenal. 5 stars as a film, 5 stars as an adaptation. I can't imagine either of the next two, while I'm looking forward to them, even coming close to measuring up. But we'll see. We'll see. So next up in the series is the 2000 Ethan Hawke adaptation, which I don't know a ton about. I know it's set in a modern days where Denmark is a New York City corporation. I wanted to choose one adaptation that was a little bit off the wall. So that one seems like it's going to fit the bill. I have no idea if the script follows the text of the play or if we're just taking the story and we're doing our own screenplay off of it. No clue. So we'll see how that one goes. I think either way, it'll be a good palate cleanser after the Branagh adaptation in order to help me give the David Tennant adaptation, which will be the last one I watch, a bit more of a fair shake. Something a little bit off the wall is probably good at this point. I'm not expecting it to be the definitive Hamlet or anything. Certainly with those changes, it's not aspiring to be that or anything of the kind, and very different goals, seemingly, at least based on what I know about it from Branagh's adaptation. So we'll see how that one goes, but I'm definitely looking forward to watching it. Don't think anything else is going to measure up to this, but that's okay. Hopefully there'll still be 2 good movies to watch here, and we'll see how those go. So I'll be back sometime in the next week or so with the Ethan Hawke adaptation. But if you haven't seen the Branagh adaptation, go watch it now. Even if you don't like Hamlet, even if Shakespeare's not your thing, this is just a great movie, and you owe yourself the opportunity to sit down and just see a piece of breathtaking filmmaking. It's astonishing. All right, so that's it for now. I'm Ben DeVono. This is the Sci-Fi Christian. Goodbye.